in what you've seen in your work? What are some of the most common causes of an ACL injury?
There's something about the situation having an extended knee, placing you in a risky scenario. And the situations in which that occurs is often sidestepping, decelerating, or landing from jumps. That has been a pretty steady description of how most ACLs occur across multiple sports, whether that's a rectangular field or a round field, whether it's a 360-degree game or not. I think the situations leading to it may start varying by sports. So, for instance, the idea of a duel in the football soccer context, there's more evidence showing that may be a really characteristic environmental constraint that puts you in those extended knee postures. You're making more sudden decisions, and that might be defensively. It's not necessarily always offensively, but particularly defensively in a duel scenario. Maybe is why we see those slightly higher incidence rates in AFL versus other, say, rectangular based or forward facing. You face your opponent most of the time, kind of rule based sports.
And what about fatigue? What's your sort of stance on that? Like, do more ACL injuries happen?
One study finds that under fatigue conditions, people put themselves in more at-risk postures, and therefore we claim maybe more at risk under fatigue. And another colleague, Jake Cowan, also has done his PhD in this area, so to speak, about what we do. So not necessarily in the context of ACL, but how do we choose to move when we're under fatigue? So you want a healthy amount of variability in how you move. It helps you distribute load to different tissues, right? So individuals that under fatigue still maintain that variability of movement, they probably are fine, unless they choose to move broaden their variability of movement where they move in a way that they don't traditionally practice. And if they don't traditionally practice, they may be exposing tissues at lengths of tissue ranges of motion that they haven't conditioned.
Yeah. With the, well, I guess, like when you're going through this process with a new squad, is it tests or do you use training as sort of your way to identify their tendencies, whether it be fresh, be fatigue? What's some of your favorite ways to when you're learning an athlete and how they move?
I guess some people will call it like a FMS or a fundamental movement screen.
Sure.
The ones that we use and some that I've developed or actually leveraged off of those that have developed these for lots of sports like Jeremy Shepard. And so paying attention to what he valued in that movement quality, it taught me a lot. I can see a lot in watching those athletes play the sport. And then after I get a hunch on key factors, and you can hear me, their ranges of motion, the strength at length at the shoulder through the hip, control of the trunk, ability to get in and out of deep flexion positions. All of these things are actually ubiquitous in most sports. If I see that not happening, my next job is in the context of the sport is to try to set a drill or a constraint where I have to force them to do it. And then the next part is to design some drills to put them through to see if they were just avoiding it because they're better at something else or if they're actually incapable of doing something. And from there, I design the program to alleviate that.
And so for the ones that do have capacity, but they've just, for whatever reason, they've just developed that habit where they do, it's inefficient sort of pattern. How do you sort of retrain that? Is that something you do in the gym?
So the first one is deciding how much of an impact it's going to make. So why are you going to make a change? So they are capable. So they could do it, which means that they may select it given absolute desire or need. But is the way in which they're doing it putting them in substantial enough risk from an injury point of view, or is it a nice to have? That's not necessarily a good enough reason to change something because it's a huge investment in time. And so you are now going to weigh up several factors: the psychology of the athlete and their ability to buy into change, that it's part of a long-term plan, and then it's going to make a significant impact on either reduction of risk we've deemed as imminent or an increase in performance. So if they can, but they don't, and you don't have a legitimate reason for those two, I probably won't change it.
And would there be any way or any technology that we could put in place to sort of monitor the strain of an ACL?
In the future, hopefully, maybe we will probably get to the point where we can broadly predict what's occurring, at least the knee and hip. And there's other people that are looking into this. Some of the work from Jacqueline Alderson's group at University of Western Australia, they've been in this space for a really long time. At some point we will get there, but we're not yet there. So unfortunately, the simple answer is no, the technology is not there yet. First grade evidence will be trying to find measures that parallel to the amount of damage or strain. There's still some work being done. There's people that agree that with the T2 relaxation MRI is indicative of the amount of collagen damage. That work shows some promise, but it's not to the point where I'd be telling everybody to do it, but it's at the point where I think that's where the research may go.